The Rams roll the Vikings 27-9. We normally skew negative after a game like this because the season is over for Minnesota. I do want to give the Rams their props here because just because we don't know who some of your players are doesn't mean you don't have a really good team. And when it comes to that Rams defense, they're not household names like they were when they won a Super Bowl. They do have some offensive firepower. They have a well-known head coach, but that was a great team performance last night, shutting down the Vikings 27-9. They sacked Sam Darnold 9 times. And you get the feeling the Rams probably looked at what the Detroit Lions did when they faced the Vikings the previous game, and that is we're going after Sam Darnold. We're going to put as much pressure on Sam Darnold as possible. And it certainly worked against the Lions, and the blueprint worked last night. Sam Darnold was uncomfortable the entire evening. And after the game, he spoke about his play at the end of the season.
I clearly just didn't play good enough the last couple weeks. Left too many throws out there that I would usually make, and got to take better care of the football today, especially. I feel like I can be a lot better in terms of just moving on with my progressions, not trying to force anything. But yeah, again, I give them a lot of credit for the way they came out, they played, and the plan that they had.
The Rams tied an NFL playoff record with 9 sacks in a playoff game. The Titans did that in 2021, the Chiefs 1993, the Browns in 86, the Niners back in 84, and the 1966 Buffalo Bills. It felt like every time Sam Darnold was sacked, money was coming out of his pockets. It was like, damn, there's another $1 million. There's another $1 million. Poor Sam. What's going on here? They put pressure on him, and I would have thought that they would have expected this from the Rams. And the Rams are a young team. Aside from Matthew Stafford, they are one of the younger teams in the NFL. And they are one of those teams at the end of the year that we thought, boy, you don't want to face them come playoff time. It felt like them and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, Tampa got kicked to the curb, but here are the Rams, and the Rams will have the Philadelphia Eagles coming up. And in case you're wondering, the Rams are getting 6 against the Eagles. The Texans getting 7.5 against the Chiefs, this according to DraftKings. The Commanders getting 9.5 against the Lions, and the Ravens are a 1.5-point favorite against the Buffalo Bills. All righty, Seton, poll question here, and then we'll go back to the game. We'll also talk about the Cowboys situation with Mike McCarthy, who is now free at last to talk to other teams, and we'll ask the question, don't know if we have an answer to it, will Mike McCarthy be a head coach in the NFL next season? All right, Seton.
You know what? Just quickly off of last night's game, too, it was so brutal. Every time Sam Darnold made a mistake or got sacked or did something, they would immediately cut to Kevin O'Connell's face. Yeah. Let's get the coach's reaction to what we just saw. And then they would sort of ping-pong back and forth between Sam Darnold just looking shell-shocked, like, what's happening? And Kevin O'Connell being like, oh, my God, this is awful.
Was J.J. McCarthy on the sidelines? Because I kept thinking, if you're going to show sideline reaction, just give me the quarterback in waiting here. And trying to figure out now what do you do? Because you can't throw Sam Darnold had a wonderful year, maybe the comeback player of the year. But you have 35 touchdown passes. What did he have, 12 or 13 interceptions? He played great. I would like to have seen Justin Jefferson's reactions as well with everything that was going on. Because if you're the best wide receiver in the league, and you're probably going, is this as good as we can get? Because you don't know what you have in J.J. McCarthy. Now, they think they know because they drafted him high, but went out with the knee injury. And now, what do you do with Sam Darnold? Sam Darnold apologist, Paulie Pabst. Yes, Paul?
Weirdly, I was thinking about this. The Vikings may have benefited by the loss yesterday because 3 weeks ago, they had to bring Sam Darnold back, whether it be franchise tag or contract. Now, they have the wiggle room to move on from him, and the fan base probably wouldn't revolt. At least this morning they wouldn't. So they're light winners last night.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that. Okay, we have to keep him, too. We don't have to keep him. And the fan base would, be able to say, we saw him in a couple of big games and he didn't do well. Look, it's going to come down to the quarterback. Win or lose, we give them credit, we give them blame. It's more than that. Now, there are a lot of times that quarterbacks they have to take the blame for sacks. And this is a situation where Sam Darnold has to take some of the blame. I think he was sacked 57 times this year. Russell Wilson would get sacked. Joe Burrow would get sacked. There's certain guys who get sacked a lot. And that's, in large part because, Caleb Williams, you're trying to hold on, you're trying to make something happen. But give credit to the Rams. And if you don't have to blitz, it's such a benefit when you just send your defensive line and then you're back in coverage and you put pressure. Now, this is what the Vikings were doing prior to the last two games. Brian Flores, that defensive coordinator, he was throwing all kinds of junk defenses, crazy stuff, and it worked until it didn't. Yes, Eaton.
If you're looking at Sam Darnold, I don't know how you're the Vikings front office. I don't know how you in the offseason sit Justin Jefferson down at a meeting and say, we're sticking with Sam. I just don't know how you can – I don't really know how you can look at any of those receivers and be like, okay, I know it was a rough 2 weeks, but we're going to stick with that dude. I just don't know how you can.
But these aren't pedestrian numbers that he put up. Yeah, Paulie.
It feels like last night he was exposed, Sam Darnold, as a good, not great quarterback. Maybe like Brock Purdy has been somewhat exposed as good, not great, where under optimal conditions in November, he's fantastic. In a playoff situation, there's only so far he could take you. And Matthew Stafford feels the opposite. Like you'd ignore the regular season with Matthew Stafford and say, in the playoffs, I trust this guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's only so many quarterbacks who truly are game-changing. Lamar is and Josh Allen is, Patrick Mahomes. They're truly different than everybody else. Because you can have, and you can put Joe Burrow in there. I think Joe is legitimately great. But you still look at sort of that second tier, and there's a big difference in that. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. Justin Herbert, I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. There's a lot of them that are lumped in there, but there's only a couple that you go, oh, my God, that guy with the ball, game on the line, he'll make a difference. Sam Darnold's not one of those guys. Kirk Cousins is not one of those guys. Jaden Daniels is becoming one of those guys. Like he's starting to sneak into the top 5 of, wow. And now let's see what he does because it's week by week. Your report card is week by week. And then we go, all right, I'll give you an A. I'll give you a B-. Sam Darnold, I'm going to give you a D. And then that's it. Then your final report card. And then you go into the offseason. If you're the Vikings, you have to be extremely confident in J.J. McCarthy. If not, you might have to say to Sam Darnold, we're going to franchise you and pay you whatever, $44 million as an insurance policy. Yes, Fritzy?
It's so easy to get caught up. I did too. 14-3. Wow, this guy is something. Look at the Vikings. But the weight of that Lions loss and yesterday's loss, that's like 3 losses each from 14-3, losing those 2 games.
But I don't know what to take away from this with Sam Darnold. Like at the end of the season, if you say, how did Sam Darnold do, the totality of the season, I'd say, good. Good. Now, is good worth $50 million? Not to me, but then it's not my money. But then how many years has he earned? Or does he say, look, I can benefit from the market because there's no other free agent quarterbacks who are good or on my level that I'm going to be able – not everybody gets a quarterback. And he might have to wait until the dust settles at the draft, and then that's when a team reaches out and says, all right. And then if you get 2 teams in a bidding war, then maybe Sam Darnold is making, 3 years, 120, something like that. And I thought that might be the direction the Vikings were going to go in, is put him in that Baker Mayfield, kind of financial slot. Yeah, Paulie.
It reminds me a bunch of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. Remember Carson Palmer was on Arizona, his last stop, and he had that great 2015 season where I think they were 13 wins, and he was an MVP candidate, comeback player of the year. And then he had a playoff game, I think, where he threw 5 interceptions, and it undid the entire season, and he never got it back. The perception.
Here is Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings head coach, on Sam Darnold's season.
I think it's very important we all think about Sam's body of work, what he was able to do this year, when not very many people thought he would be able to lead a team to 14 wins. Very rare for a quarterback in their first year. In fact, it is rare, the most wins by a first-year quarterback with a team. And just the way he came in, committed himself to just a daily process to be the best version of himself. It did not work out in the end. Proud of him. Proud of really everybody in that locker room. But Sam and the journey him and I went on this year will always be something that's a special place in my heart for sure.
Well, you got to back your guy, and Kevin's doing the right thing. Sam Darnold completed 68% of his passes and had a passer rating of 106.4, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions through week 17. Then he completed 53% of his passes, QB rating of 66.4, had 1 touchdown, 1 interception in his last 2 games. So a dramatic fall off, and you wonder, did these teams figure out something in this situation? Now, I always like it when somebody says, well, we got the blueprint. Well, there are certain teams that have the people to carry out a blueprint. I can have the blueprint to solve a Rubik's Cube. That doesn't mean I'm going to solve it. I'll be like, damn, how do these kids do this? Yes, Paulie.
Possible solution for next year for the Vikings. Play Sam Darnold in the regular season. Play J.J. McCarthy in the postseason. He was great in the postseason for Michigan. Problem solved.
Okay.